I'm going to fast forward to the end of this homily and give you the good news right up front so you don't have to really worry about it. It goes like this. We heard it in that second reading. If God is for us, then who can be against us? He who did not spare his only son, but handed him over for us all, how will he not also give us everything else along with him? If God is for us, who can be against us? Or remember that other one. God so loved the world that he sent his own son, Jesus Christ, to redeem us. That is the good news. The bad news, you already know, because you're living it already. It's what they call in Puerto Rico, la brega, the struggle, the grind, the torturous days and nights that we have lived now. It's a year just about from the beginning of COVID, and we are living la brega. Now, the folks in Puerto Rico have been living this a lot longer than we have here in the upper 48 with hurricanes and economic despair, the whole question of being a territory or a state or something in between, et cetera, et cetera. They know. Apparently, potholes in Puerto Rico are so profound that to wreck a car almost instantly. But we know the struggle. We know that there's good news, that Jesus promises us life everlasting, the forgiveness of sin and all that. What he keeps failing to tell us, or maybe he does and we never want to read or hear the fine print, is that the getting there is going to be a struggle. It's going to be hard. As a matter of fact, he tells us that right in that first reading. If God is for us, then why the heck does he send Abraham, his chosen one, to go and sacrifice his son on the altar of God? Why would he do such a thing? For some people, that first reading is a scandal. How can a father give his son, kill his son, basically, as sacrifice offering to God? Abraham does it. What is that all about? This God who loves us so much. Just a foretaste of struggle. And then in the gospel reading, we have those young disciples, eager to follow Jesus, think he is all of that. And there's this great transfiguration scene of which they see the divine in Jesus so clearly, along with the seminal figures from the Hebrew scriptures, Moses and Elijah, the prophets, the one who is to bring people to the promised land. They're all there. They want to freeze the moment, have that party go on forever. But Jesus stops it. God stops it from heaven. You are too young, your souls. You do not understand la brega. God is basically telling them, you need to learn more. They couldn't figure out what rising from the dead was all about. And you know, later on, in this gospel, when Peter tells Jesus, oh no, they're not going to kill you. You're not going to be crucified. What does Jesus call him? Satan. Get out of my way. We human beings not only want to have dreams and aspirations, but we want to control the outcome of those dreams and aspirations. We are commanding them to come true. In America, we think we have that ability. Hollywood inspired as we are, always for that happy ending. The struggles are just minor, and you should get to the end of the rainbow. Money in hand, lottery won, whatever it is, there is no real struggle. We have it all. How far that is from our reality, as we have learned, I hope, in this year of COVID, when plans that were so locked in just moments before turned upside down, when loved ones who were in the peak of health succumbed to a disease in weeks or days, when economic security, which we thought was just so baked in, crumbled. COVID is the great revealer. It has revealed a lot about you and me, how we deal with adversity, how we deal with the truths that have been dealt out that we don't want to accept, how we can, as human beings, sometimes bend the truth in such a way it looks like a lovely pretzel that we want to devour to make ourselves feel good, when the truth, in fact, is far from it. These are the things we do in the midst of La Brega, trying to make sense, trying to get control over something we didn't cause and something that we have no control over, except to do the best we can, hopefully leaning back on some core principles. And I bet you in the middle of COVID, you discovered what your core principles were, and you might not like some of them. And that's why we find ourselves in this bookended Lent between the beginning of COVID and the end, when we need to grapple with ourselves, the way we've dealt, the way we've survived, the way we've struggled. And we must learn from this experience. And you've gotten wisdom already that you didn't know you had. And as I've said in other masses, you'll have plenty to pass down to the next generation. When you can say, when they complain about something mundane, you could say, I remember a year when we couldn't, and you could have a whole list of wisdom at your disposal to give out, because we will emerge from this. La Brega. Now, Abraham, I think the key to Abraham, at least for me, is that he knew that everything that was given to him by God was pure gift. His son was pure gift. And if God gave that gift that was undeserved, that he didn't earn by praying and being such a good guy all of his life up to this his grand old age, he knew that God had gifted he and his wife with this child. And if God wanted it back, he had to give the gift back. He also knew he was called, and that somehow in being called by God, there is responsibility. And so to hear God's call. But also at the bottom of that, and to follow it, but also at the very bottom of that is the trust. Abraham had no idea, if he had sacrificed his son, how the other truth was going to come to pass, namely, that his descendants would be like the stars in the sky and the sands in the sea. He let the future go and gave it to God by being willing to sacrifice, which is, for any parent, the worst possible thing you could do. Giving your son back to God. How many parents who's buried their children who I've been at funerals at? The awfulest thing you can imagine. Abraham, though, let go of the future and trusted God. And in that, the covenant was complete. The plan was not Abraham's. It wasn't his wife's. It wasn't Isaac's. It was all God's. And he agreed that that was the case. This would be something that the disciples in the Transfiguration would take a while, as we know, to understand and to unspool. That Jesus did need to be crucified for us, to be given up by God for us, so that there could be life. They did not understand this. And we, even though we've got the whole story in front of us, don't get that, especially in times of La Brega, where whatever it is that's going on and what we so want desperately to happen in our lives doesn't happen. The disciples, though, give us comfort because Jesus stuck with them and they stuck with him. They blew it on occasion. We know Peter certainly did in a very big way, but Jesus still abided and walked with them, which is our great consolation. Because I know during this year of COVID, there have been moments when I have not kept my eye on the ball and trusted in God's ultimate plan that he was going to get us through. And I know neither of you did either, so I feel that I'm in good company here today. But the message is always, Jesus abides. We need to be able to listen, though, and be attentive, because the messages come subtly, they come often, reminding us that the transfiguration moments do occur that keep us going. I remember in the midst of my mother's hospitalization for COVID, it was like the second day in hospital, and it wasn't good. And it was hard to get information. And a number of my mom's friends and family, and me too at points, thought she was not going to leave that hospital on her own ambulation, that she would not make it. There was a lot of people who feared that was the case and were acting as if. But my sister on the phone call on probably one of the darkest moments of that hospitalization, which I know many others have had as well, and not always with the same outcome. My sister had an Abrahamic moment, at least for me, because she said over the phone, as we didn't know what was going to happen next, and everybody else was like tossing their hat, she's not going to make it. My sister said, "I am just going to lean on my faith," she said. "We're going to get through this." That's what I heard. And to know my sister and to have my sister say this was, for me, a profound Abrahamic moment that I needed to hear, because I was in my own, let's just put our heads down and barrel through this. I needed someone to tell me to have faith. I say it all the time to you all in so many different ways, but I needed to hear it. I needed to trust. And I don't know what Michelle meant by that for her. She knows. For me, it was whatever happens in this moment, I am not in charge of the future. God is. And if God wants her to live, which is certainly what we're all asking him to do, so be it. But if not, my faith says, so be that too. By the grace of God, things worked out. And when my mom said, "Well, God doesn't seem to be listening to anybody right now," I said, "You know, there's like 200 or 300 people on Facebook who are praying for you. Somebody has to have a better line into God." I trusted the sisters were probably going to be the ones who were going to knock down the doors of heaven when so many other doors hadn't. But God, indeed, for once in my life, was on the same page. We all were that day. We will all have struggles in this life, even after COVID. We have learned a lot through this year. We must keep walking, trusting that while we can't build tents and mountains to freeze the greatest moments of our lives, we have those in our hearts that remind us that God is always here. Most especially, we come here to come to the Eucharist, that I pray for the day when these pews are filled again, because being nourished here in the church with the body and blood of Christ, with our brothers and sisters who are all around us, reinforcing our faith, makes a huge difference. I know it does for me, and it does for you as well. But we are blessed that we're able to connect electronically, and there's so much good that has come from that. As we go forward, again, remember where we started. God is indeed for us. Who can be against us? That is the message to help us to examine our lives, how well we've done in the past year or how much we failed, how we've been able to work with COVID, like my friend Ken with his matching mask and shirt, something we've learned during COVID. This is a new style choice, so God bless you. But there's so many ways in which we have grown. May we cherish that and also bring to God those things that still have work to be done. We got plenty of time left in Lent to do that. And if you need any inspiration on those days where you think it's too hard, then maybe God doesn't love you enough, just remember this little thought. God's gonna love us like nobody loves us, come rain or come shine. High as the mountain, deep as the river, come rain or come shine. My friends, the days may be cloudy or sunny, we may be in or we're out of the money, but God's gonna love us, come rain or come shine.